Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to EV Geek Studios. As always, you get the two normal faces on your screen, which is me, Joel, and Sebastian. But tonight we're joined by someone else on the screen. That is Chris Bow from Bow Family EV. Chris, how are things treating you out there in California?
Not bad, man. We're hitting that summer California heat wave of 80 degrees and low humidity, so we're suffering. We're suffering out here,
80, for real, 80 is suffering.
It broke the 80 mark today, and I had to turn on the AC today.
We're lucky if it gets down to 80 at night. Okay, so all right.
With like
So
100% humidity.
Oh,
yes, with
no.
100% humidity. Yes. All right. So we thought we'd do a little chat about kind of like the state of EV adoption and the future of EV adoption. So as we were kind of talking about what we want to chat about tonight, Chris sent me over a link from Cox Automotive. Their latest Q2 numbers are in. We're going to kind of base our discussion around that and then kind of look at the future of what EV sales are going to be like, because it's been a roller coaster ride for the past 2 or 3 years. We had some ups and downs, and we're going to kind of dig a little deeper on maybe why that is happening and what we can do to maybe help EV adoption. So I'm going to pose these questions to Sebastian and Chris and let them chat it out. And if I feel like I need to add my 2 cents, I will. So, all right. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So, like I said, I got the Cox Automotive report in. And according to that report, EV market share kind of settled at about 5.8% in Q2 of 2026, which is a drop from the 10.6% share in Q3 of 2025, when buyers rushed to use those expiring government incentives and everything like that. However, if you look at Q1 of this year and Q2 of this year, we're kind of see it flattening, maybe suggesting that there's a market correction is maybe ending. So, Chris, we're going to start with you since you're our lovely guest tonight. So we did see a sharp correction after federal incentives expired, no more tax credits. But Q2 numbers suggest that maybe the market could be stabilizing. So are we looking at maybe a new, more organic baseline for EV demand in the US? Or do you think we still need some government incentives and policy to push past that 6% market share?
Oh man, I mean, you're asking the magic question. I
Yep.
mean, people much smarter than me are saying it's going to be until Q1 or Q2 of next year before we kind of get back to baseline. Is what the word is, and in California, they've decided that's something that they want to accelerate. So they've kind of brought back some incentives, in typical California style. They've kind of done some things to bring back $7,500 rebates, and they've put some contingencies around it, so it's limited to first time EV buyers, and it is a $50,000 rebate unless you're based out of California, which is kind of a little nudge in the ribs to Elon, I think, where he left California and skedaddled off to Austin. So if you're Lucid or Rivian, and your price goes above 50,000, you're exempt. But all other automakers, your price has to be 50,000 or under to qualify for it, and it's split
Hmm.
in half between the state of California and the manufacturer. So it's 50-50 in terms of who puts money into that pool. And so they're going. We've already got a pretty high adoption rate out here. So places like here or up in Washington, they've always kind of had a little bit extra going on there. So and you see that in the adoption rates. So clearly money moves the needle. We saw that with lease incentives and those types of things. So I think in places like that, we know that that's going to get higher adoption. And naturally, though, that's always been the argument, right? I think that's a philosophical debate. I can understand both sides of it. That oil companies have always got, whether it's land deals and land leases or corn subsidies for ethanol. You can go on forever about the different hidden or transparent ways that they've been subsidized forever. But at the end of the day, people will argue whether it's NEVI or whether it's state incentives, federal incentives against or for, whether or not it's a good idea. And at the end of the day, I think it's just going to be a debate that we can't win, because you're going to feel how you're going to feel. And the natural market is really what I think I'm all for. I'm like, let's get the vehicles to be the better choice, because some states and some politics will always see things differently. And I can't change that. But what I can say is if the best product is the EV and the best tool for the job is the EV, then it will win the argument and it will win the day. And so that's where I think the focus has to be, right? Is just make the better darn product and people will buy it. That's why people buy, smartphones over flip phones. It became the better product. And I think that's ultimately where the manufacturer focus should be. But I do think that's not going to happen by the end of this year, unfortunately. You know, I don't know
Right.
if what Sebastian thinks on that.
No, I mean, you brought up a good point. It's like if it just needs to be the better product. That's something Joel and I have talked about a lot, when we talk about like things like DC fast charging speeds or whatever, is like everyone seems to kind of be targeting the same stuff. And some of it's because they kind of get to exist in this vacuum where they're not having to compete against Chinese EVs or other foreign vehicles, and we're forcing automakers out of the US market now that we're already in the US market because we're winning. I don't know. But um But, it's ultimately what it comes down to is if it's the better product, people will start to make that shift. Joel and I, we recently drove the Lexus ES, which still has some flaws, still whatever. It's still a Toyota Lexus EV. They're still kind of getting their groundwork. I can say without a doubt, it is a better product than the hybrid. And it's cheaper, which, and I feel like
Mhm.
if we start seeing more things like that, where the EV version is legitimately just a better product, that will push things to adoption. Um, And I'm kind of with you there too. It's like incentives kind of seem to make sense at the earliest stage to try to just kind of get people to kind of make that initial plunge so then people can start prophesizing and saying how great, oh, I've done it. This is great. This is awesome. But ultimately, they should be able to just stand on their own. Like we should be at a point now in the market. There should be enough saturation, especially like where you are in California, where it seems like you can't, throw anything without hitting a Tesla or whatever. It's like where you are. It's like I feel like at this point, the incentives probably aren't necessary. You see them everywhere. People obviously can tell that they must work, otherwise, literally everyone wouldn't drive one.
Yeah, I think there's two things that I am struck by. One is that the Nissan Leaf and the Chevy Bolt, despite their price, are not burning off the showroom floors right now. So the price argument alone
Mhm.
is not necessarily the answer. The Equinox continues to outsell the Bolt, and there's just something about the form factor and the look and the style of it, and maybe there's something about the Bolt is still seen as the Bolt, and it can't get rid of that kind of where it came from, and that was that
Mhm.
original kind of thing. And so, the Leaf, again, still kind of the original Leaf. And so there's maybe a stigma around those two are kind of some of the original legacy EVs. And so people just see them as what they were, even though they're much, much better than they ever started. Right. But even, despite being kind of entry level, affordable vehicles, I'm curious if Ford can break that as they get into this time next year and they start to release theirs. Can they market theirs? Because I haven't seen a big push of the Leaf or the Bolt in marketing out
Mhm.
here in California,
Mhm.
where you would think they would be shoving this thing like, look at this awesome stuff, but I haven't seen it. And here's this affordability, and it's where is it? It's just not doing much. And so I'm hoping that Ford comes out with something special and it's going to be in that affordability range. And then they're going to show off some really special tech and something that makes it for the every person and makes it just kind of that new thing that makes it relatable. Because I think it's that's the challenge, right? Will it
Right.
be that? Because as much as and I love R2, right? It's still when we say quote affordable and it's a $45,000 starting point, and we haven't talked about dock fees and delivery and taxes.
Mhm.
That's still very much an upper middle class car. Um,
Right.
but when we can't move a $30,000 EV, oh, right? That's kind of my
Yeah.
first thought. And then I think the second thing that really strikes me is I was watching this guy. I love small YouTubers because I'm a small YouTuber, so I love to support and kind of discover small YouTubers. And I came across this guy that cracks me up. Actually, I'd love to get him on our podcast because I just he resonates with me because so much of what he says is kind of up my alley. Where he's talking about vehicles have gotten so expensive, and he's railing against the $60,000 and $70,000 truck. which Josh and Jesse and I on our podcast talk about all the time. Like, why is every EV that comes out, the BMW and the CLA, and why is everything the Lucid Gravity is? Why is everything exciting? This unaffordable thing that will never exist in my driveway. And, it's even insane that I drive what I drive, right? I've never in my life owned the type of vehicle that I own. I really had to stretch to do it. It's frankly irresponsible that I own the vehicle I do. I mean, right? I mean, I've just decided, I've just made the decision that I'm gonna, that I've worked long enough in my life that I'm gonna make this irresponsible decision and suck it up. You know what I mean?
Let's be clear. The only person on this panel right now that makes responsible decisions is Sebastian. So
good job, buddy.
Somehow,
right?
Somehow he makes the responsible decision. So
it's funny because this guy is 100% talking about me. This guy's name is if anybody has a chance, it's called the Highwayman, and it's a small channel, and he's brilliant. But I disagree with half of what he says, and I agree with half of what he says. But I'm watching this video, and I'm like, dude, this guy's talking about me. He's like, these guys buy these $70,000 trucks so that they can go to Costco on the weekend, and I'm like, what the hell?
That's me.
That's me. This jerk. It's 100% me, dude. I've never, I've off-roaded my truck a handful of times. Once was when I went to see Ben Westby up in the mountains of Colorado. A couple times when I did a couple FedEx charity events that were off-road in the hills up here. I mean, literally, I can count on one hand the time I've off-roaded it. I've never in my life towed, and I've owned 4 trucks, and I've never in my life off-roaded any of them. I couldn't tell you how to connect a tow hitch. Literally couldn't do it. The one time my truck was borrowed to tow, my uncle did it, and he accidentally jackknifed it and damaged my tailgate. Kyle one day called me because he wanted to pick up some chargers in the Bay Area. And he's like, "Hey, can I borrow your Lightning? And can you go pick up these chargers?" I'm like, "Dude, I would love to. I've never towed in my life, man." So it was right. I'm absolutely that pavement princess truck owner guy, right? But it's that's what happened to the classic affordable pickup truck, and these trucks that nobody can work on anymore because they're all computerized and they're all connected and they're all so tech heavy that you can't fix them in your garage, and et cetera, right? Why do they have to be that? And then you talk about the slate and all these other things, right? And so be curious to see how those types of deals progress. And so that's one of the challenges with EVs is a lot of people can't afford them. They can't be fixed by your local garage person. They can't be fixed in your own garage. And, when they brick or update or all these different things, and it's just tough, right? And that's where the EVs, and then you get the idea of them being mandated. And, in California, despite a lot of people saying EVs aren't mandated, they have this whole 2035 thing, and that rubs people the wrong way. And the American ethos is one of not wanting to be dictated to. And so what strikes me about that is we've really not done ourselves any favors with the politics of it. And so the two things that I kind of compare it to are the metric system and bidets. Okay, Americans, despite the fact that the metric system is probably better, and from everything I hear, because again, America, and I don't know because I'm an American. I hear the bidets are better. Drop a comment, guys, if you've ever used a bidet. My understanding is they are amazing.
Bidets are awesome.
Have you used one, Sebastian?
I have 2 in my house, 1 in each bathroom.
Fantastic. So you see,
let me take back about making responsible decisions. Now I take that comment back. So
I don't have expensive bidets. They're like $30 a bathroom. Okay.
So you want to come install one in my house? So.
Like EVs, the rest of the world has discovered that the metric system and bidets are a better choice. And we as Americans have said, no, we're not going to do that. We won't be told what to do. I'm going to wipe my butt with dry trees and like it. And I'm going to use feet and yards and gallons. And I don't care what you say. So I'm going to drive my Dino Juice vehicle. And you know what I'm saying? So that I think is another obstacle. How do we overcome it? I think that's tough.
It reminds me of the Nate Bargatze, George Washington thing he did for Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
He talked about creating, we will measure things. It's hilarious. So yeah.
Nobody
so
knows.
That brings up, it's nobody
just real
knows.
Quick.
Sure.
Just real quick before we move on from the incentive question, I did want to bring this up, Joel. You might have seen this. There was a report that came out recently and it had listed the current top 5 states for EV adoption. Do you know what number 1 was?
It's got to be California.
No. Or sorry,
Oh.
South
top
Carolina.
5% for like increase, like the top
Percentage.
5 like increased percentage in EV revenue.
Arkansas.
Yeah. Oklahoma.
Arkansas. Oh, not bad.
Oklahoma.
We're
Arkansas was
neighbors.
number 3.
Look at that.
And these are 2 states that have no incentives actively punish you for driving an EV.
Yeah.
What's the thought behind it? What's the any hint for why?
We have dirt cheap electricity.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, which you're in
Dirt.
California. I'm about to say numbers that hurt you. I'm sorry.
Right.
I pay 11
yes.
cents a kilowatt hour, just
Yep.
normal rate.
Awesome.
high around here would be like 13 or 14. That would be high. So yeah.
We also just have a tons of, and one of the things this report kind of attributes to is every household has more than one vehicle. So it's easy for people to have a gas car and an EV. And as we've kind of seen before, a lot of times when people get that first EV and they actually stick with it,
Yes.
then they start realizing, oh, I could do a second one. But that kind of maybe, I think, eases adoption some, is that since we're in an area where there is no public transit, there is no walking everywhere because we hate sidewalks for some reason. Or when we put sidewalks in, we'll put them in for like a quarter mile and then they'll just disappear. Because of that, every household, if you have more than one person in the house, you have basically a car for each adult, is ultimately what it works out to, it seems like. And so that means people can buy one EV and then still keep their F-150 or whatever. But that's kind of one of the things that talks with the article kind of equates some of that to.
Yeah.
I think Ford was onto something when they did their home is where the charge is and was giving people chargers and installing them. And manufacturers need to lean into this. They need to lean into this idea of, in their marketing, I'm going to save you money. I'm going to install it for you. They need to go after homeowners. And there is so much of the market there, and get their marketing around this idea in those marketplaces, right? Where it's 11 cents. Lean the heck into that, man. Go after that middle America area where it's just demonstrate that it's a no-brainer. What are you doing? You're leaving money on the table, and get out there and push that and lean into that value, because it's there.
It is. So you brought up next. I'm already going off script. So, because you brought up a good topic there, Chris.
I did it.
Yes. Already. Question number 2 off.
We've
off
broken
script.
him.
Didn't have this in there because you made a good comment. I'm actually going to pose this question to Sebastian first. You made a good content. You said, let the car and tech speak for itself, not the incentives. So what is the future of Chinese EVs in America? Because they have the tech, they have the affordability. So Sebastian, to you, what is the future of Chinese EVs in America?
I mean, it really just, again, Joel, we don't like getting too political around here.
Yep.
But they don't have a future until things change in DC. I don't see any world where if things stay the same in DC that they come over here. Or at least come over here in a way
pressure to make them come over.
Or at least come over here in a way that would make them competitive. You know what I mean? Because like they'll be here with that 100% tariff or whatever to where they're not price competitive and people won't get them. Because that's like the big thing is like they're cheap. Like there's affordable, they can whatever is. If they don't come over here with that, then there is no real incentive for the American buyer to buy it over a Ford or whatever. You see VinFast, they came over here with a product that was just the same price as everyone else's product. And how's that working out for them? They're a brand new automaker that no one's heard of. And so they're not on the top of anyone's list. No one buys Mitsubishis anymore because why would you buy a Mitsubishi when you could buy literally anything else for the same price?
Well, you have to admit the VinFast was, we drove one. It wasn't the best. I couldn't even get the back screen to work. So
has dog mode.
I do agree. It's also not an amazing car, but we've seen time and times again, the average consumer doesn't care. They're going to buy whatever fits their budget the best and gets them the most of what they want. They're not looking at things like we are, like driving dynamics and random things. Like the average consumer will put up with a lot of quirks and whatever else, as long as the car ultimately does what they want it to and is in a price they can afford it. And so it's like, it's hard, but also it's hard to cross shop a VinFast if it's the same price as a Ford or a
Hmm.
Hyundai or whatever else. It's like, well, obviously you're going to pick the one that has a more, you know, do you buy the Samsung phone or do you buy the Huawei, blah, 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 that
Hmm.
has 17 words after its name? You buy the one that has brand recognition and you
Hmm.
recognize and you know is going to exist in 4 years.
Yep. Chris, what do you think about Chinese EVs in America?
Man, I think if it was up to me, and nobody's going to be so irresponsible as to make it up to me, but
Hmm.
if I was king of the forest, to use a song from Wizard of Oz, um, I would make it so that they are welcome as long as they build their manufacturing here. I think that's the only way that it can
So,
be.
like what they're doing in Canada.
It, no, because in Canada they're allowing them to import a certain number if they are at a certain price, and then there is a certain bucket that can be above that price, but it's only a small
Gotcha.
bucket. And there's a small limited number, then that number grows over the years. So I think it starts at like man, we need Simply Gregster on for this, but it's like
I think it was 50,000.
35,000. Was it
Yeah,
50,000?
I think it was
And then
50,000. Yeah.
Okay, and then a certain percentage of that 50,000 has to be under a certain price. And like even in that, I would have said, but none of them can be Tesla because I'm like, we've already
Yeah.
got Teslas. You can't import a bunch of Teslas from China when you can just import them in from the U.S. I mean, I want to see some real
Makes them a whole
interesting
lot cheaper up
vehicles.
there, though. So
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah, yeah. I
that's
mean,
the
I
issue.
guess I guess when
t-
I said that, I was mainly because one of the big things was that they wanted the Chinese automakers to actually set up shop in Canada, you
yeah,
know,
and
as
not
part of
just
getting to start importing them now, get some cash flow, see that the market's there, and then start actually setting up shop, kind of.
I don't
I
want it
guess
to
that's
be
where my
just
brain with that.
not just dealerships though. I want them to manufacture these things.
Right.
And I think that if you could say, you could set up some reasonable arguments, right? They just need to apply to everybody, I think is the thing. And, I've heard Jim Farley talk about this a few times. And a lot of my examples are Ford centric. I apologize just because it's what I hear and what I know and, what I'm familiar with. But, Jim, other than Tesla, Ford has a lot of very heavy US, based vehicles, but they are not, they are very US assembled, but they are not US parts. A lot of those
Hmm.
parts, wire harnesses, motors, assemblies come in from, Mexico and China and all these kind of places. I can remember when the Ukraine war started, a lot of wire harnesses come from Ukraine. I was surprised to hear it was one of the big places that wire harnesses come from. Um, and he would talk about these import things that would happen, and he would talk about how tariffs are in Washington. They don't think about these things, so that if a Japanese manufacturer brings in a vehicle fully assembled, they have a certain tariff. But if a U.S. manufacturer brings in a part um, from China, their tariff is higher than the Japanese car that comes in with parts from China with the same part, right? So let's say we both have the same part from China. Mine comes in as a raw part unassembled. Theirs comes in an assembled part from Japan. That same part, like it would almost be cheaper for them to bring in the part in a Japanese car, take it out of the
Hmm.
car, right, to get that part. Not literally because you're buying the whole car, but you understand what I'm
This, I
saying, like
mean,
that.
your analogy there makes me think of how Ford used to bring the Transit Connect over to the United States. So, because we had such weird rules about taxes on small vans and small pickup trucks, every Transit Connect that came into the US for a long time came as a passenger van. And then they would get here to the United States, they would gut the rear seats out of them to turn them into a cargo van because that was cheaper than just importing the cargo van.
But yeah, because of the way that it's categorized, right?
Right.
And these silly things that we do to ourselves as a government, just make absolutely no sense. And so those are the type of things that they need to somehow get smart people together in a room and say, let's make it so that it's just fair, right? Let's make it so that the parts, if stop with the tariffs to begin with. Things like battery components shouldn't be tariffed. Um, because that's a big core part of the EV. So we need to be able to get these BYD, CATL, incredible advanced batteries into the US for these manufacturers. And maybe you want to put a limit on it, right? If you want to say, if you want to encourage US manufacturing, because it can be done, Ford is building CATL licensed technology batteries. So maybe you say, okay, for 10 years, no tariff on the batteries, but within 10 years, you have to build your manufacturing BYD and Geely. So you can come in, You can import your batteries and ship them in for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, you must have ramped up your US manufacturing of the same batteries. If you haven't within 10 years, you get fined and have to back pay tariffs for the entirety of those 10 years, right? Something like that, right? Some reasonable thing so that you can start your manufacturing and maybe even have to sell your batteries to GM and Stellantis and whoever else. So you're all competing because that's the big weight, right? On the EVs is the battery cost. But man, there's so much that we're missing out on that everywhere you go that it's there, whether it's Europe or Australia or Mexico, when they get them in the marketplace, EV adoption goes up
Hmm.
and the competition goes up and you see these amazing vehicles out there and we don't get to see like the Kia work van when you're talking about the transit,
Right.
where's the
Hmm.
Kia van? Where is that? Where are these amazing trucks that are all over in Amsterdam and in Norway, and we don't get to see those trucks. Where are these incredible cars from Zeekr, BYD, from Neo, from Xiaopeng? Oh man, I want to see them, and we can't. And so it's going to take a long time to build a factory, but there needs to be some type of um, way to incentivize them to come in and not have U.S. jobs lost. And at the end of the day, let's build U.S. jobs. Let's get U.S. jobs in this industry, but let's let them come in and do it. Would be my take.
Totally
I don't
agree. Totally agree.
I don't think they will,
We're,
but
yeah, that is true. There's not. I don't think in the foreseeable future we're going to see
Yes,
BYDs
it's like
driving
I
around the
like
streets.
everything you just said. I like everything
Yeah,
you just said, but I
yeah,
also, unfortunately, the reality that we're in right now, I
yes,
just don't see it.
yeah. Point for Chris. There's so now we're going to shift gears. Still looking at this Q2 report from Cox Automotive. Kind of Tesla's dominance versus emerging legacy automakers. So looking at that same report, Tesla's sales fell over 10% in the first half of the year, but they still command roughly half of the entire U.S. EV market. By two models, the Model Y and Model 3. Yeah, they have the Cybertruck and all those, but that's not carrying them. Meanwhile, we've seen recently, we've talked about it on our podcast, we're seeing legacy brands like Toyota and Subaru double their EV volume year over year. So, Chris, question to you. Yes, that Tesla still accounts for about half of US EV sales, despite experience kind of maybe its own little dips in sales. And at the same time, we have brands like Toyota that is rapidly kind of climbing the ranks. How do you see the competitive landscape shifting over the next 2 to 3 years? Can one of these legacy automakers finally, build its way up in erodes Tesla's market share? Or is Tesla just simply they've had too much of a head run starting, they're too far ahead in the game?
man, I think they're too far ahead, and I think the only one that has a shot is someone that does something remarkable. And I don't see any of them. I think the only ones that have a shot at it are Rivian and Ford, says the man with a Ford hat drinking the Kool-Aid. Um,
Yes.
and I think both of them are time will tell on their next product, right? It's R2. Can R2 get the LiDAR? Can it pull it off? Can the autonomy work? I think autonomy is a big thing for both, and we're gonna find out real soon if Ford gets it because can their autonomy work? And I'm really interested in they've talked about because they've seen the stuff in China. And a couple times, Jim Farley has hinted at this idea of the user interface is going to be this connected experience, unlike anything that's been seen. And I've seen enough video from like Wheels Boy and from other folks that are out in China, where when you walk up with the phone in China, it recognizes your phone. It's interconnected. It knows all your media. It can even see your face and know which driver it is, whether it's you and your wife. And it's just greets you and all this amazing stuff, right? Like when I try to talk to Siri, it doesn't. It's like it can't answer anything. It doesn't recognize half my words. It can't even Tesla, right? It can't read your text messages right. When I walk up to grab the handle on my Ford, it takes two or three pulls before my phone as a key has worked. When half the time my Apple Maps is sitting there yapping at me that uh, you know Apple Maps has lost connection with your Lightning, and EV route planning isn't accurate. All the constantly, right? There's parts of the
Mhm.
bridge that I go across and it's lost connection with it. It's so unstable. And in China, this stuff is just seamless, right? And in China, they have FSD software that's every bit as good as what Tesla is doing. And LiDAR versus camera, nobody cares. I just want to know, can I get in the car and does it work? They're so far ahead of us. So Ford knows what they're up against. They've seen Tesla, they've seen China. Um, and so when they say these things, I know what um, I've seen. I've not experienced, but I've seen enough video that I know what a little bit about what China has. I'm not sure if the people that Ford is talking to half the time, the reporters, the car people know, right? But just the general reporter from you know whoever, Detroit Free Press, do they have any clue what what's really out there? And if Ford delivers some half baked product and it's just Apple CarPlay and nothing remarkable. And it's really just the next iteration of Blue Cruise that's essentially, lane centering on the highway and nothing's really there until 2030. No, that's not going to be impressive. Is it just the Ford Maverick cost like a Bolt or a Leaf? Man, it's not going to move the needle, right? Then no. So, and then that's where it's concerning, right? Then it's just still Tesla all day long. That's kind of where I'm at. But nobody else, Toyota, these other guys, I mean, they're selling stuff at the margins. They're selling, uh, just pocket change. You know what I mean? They're not. To me, if you're not selling 100,000 of something, it's pointless. You're not ever making all these companies that are like we're writing off billions of dollars. If you can't sell a vehicle at 100,000 volume, you cannot scale it. You cannot make it profitable. It's impossible. There's just no scale to it. So until a vehicle breaks 100,000, it's a loser. And I don't mean any disrespect by that to these people and these vehicles that people that work on them, but that's the number to me. If they're not hitting
Mhm.
100,000, it's a pointless vehicle.
Your thoughts, Sebastian?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't see Tesla losing their lead for a while. Um, I do, and we've talked about this some in the past. I do feel concern over the current trajectory that Tesla seems to be taking their vehicle business. Because I mean, Tesla has, or at least Elon has, all but said that he's not really interested in making cars anymore. Like that's not the focus. That's
Mm.
not the dream. Whatever. And we've kind of seen that in some of the new stuff, like in Tesla's, the updates to the Model Y and now the Model YL, and like how we've seen this in their refreshes that they're kind of just, oh, cool, it's new, but like it doesn't really push the envelope that much, right? It's like the refresh Model Y, the biggest change on it was the suspension, which the fact that it took them 6 years or however long to fix the suspension of a Model Y by itself is baffling. Uh, but otherwise, there's not that much improvement to it and things like that. And I feel like at some point, if Tesla keeps going down this road of not really changing their cars, not really making improvements, whatever, they're just allowing other automakers to then come in, catch up to them or pass them or whatever else, to where then again, the best product will sell. Um, and while Tesla has everyone beat on the software experience, they have everyone beat currently in the US market, at least on like autonomy features or whatever, we still find, we're not necessarily to that point where autonomy features are selling the car. We're not there yet. We find in like maybe super tech circles, whatever, people are comfortable with letting FSD drive them around or whatever. But there's still a lot more work to be done to convince someone like my wife to be comfortable with FSD, or someone like Joel's
Yep.
wife to actually use cruise control. And it's the number of people I know that have cars that have full adaptive cruise and lane centering, all that, and they never use it.
Yep.
They just get in the car and drive it, and they'll take full 10-hour road trips and not use cruise control. It's like they just don't care. They're just, whatever. And so that's why it's like, as cool as the tech is, and I'm, super happy to see that Tesla is leading in the space and they keep making it better, whatever. I feel like they're going to need to do more than that to kind of stay cemented in this number one position. Now, they're not leaving number one for a long time, just to make sure I'm clear on that. I mean, like you said, everyone else is kind of operating in the margins currently still. The only ones that are even up like maybe a little bit more than the margin would be someone like GM or Hyundai or, where they just have, bukus of dollars and they've been doing it a while and whatever. But even then, we're still talking like what it was Hyundai's like 25,000 cars. Whoop de doo,
Yep.
right? Uh, um, but yeah, there's a long way away from not being number one. But it'll be interesting to see if they continue on this trajectory of the car being the same year after year after year after year after year after year. Do they continue to slip and fall, or do people start really caring about FSD and that actually starts moving more cars than it is now? I don't know.
I think the person or the company that's going to make the move has to do something truly inspired. And I think to way back when Hyundai first kind of came out, and I want to think this is I'm gonna get hit my history wrong probably, but I feel like it was in the 80s, and the Hyundai was kind of a cheap vehicle, and they had like this 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, right? Like nobody else was doing this. It was outrageous. Like, what are you talking about? It was an affordable vehicle. The build quality was a little questionable, but I don't care. It's 10 years, 100,000 miles. Nobody was doing that. And someone needs to come out with the EV and they're like, our EV has an unlimited battery warranty, period. That's it. You buy the car, the life of the battery is warranted, and we will swap it. And I was thinking about this with the idea of the Neo, right? And CATL is doing this in Japan too, where they just Japan, I'm sorry, China, where they just had to have battery swaps. You
Mhm.
you pay for the swapping of the batteries. And so you never really own the battery. You own the car. And at that point, you just charge, you're doing maybe it's LFP, right? So you're charging it to 100 all the time and you're charging batteries in 8 minutes. And because that's what people just, they don't want to think about their car. They just want to plug the dang thing in, get it to 100, charge it fast. Not everybody can live in a house, right? So you need to have this public infrastructure everywhere. And this is where I just think, and I just think we're so far away from it, unfortunately. But you almost need a BYD or a CATL to be able to come into America, build 2,000 high-powered chargers that take 8 minutes, dump a bunch of money into it, say that our cars are out here. You're going to charge them as much as you want in 8 minutes. They're available at all these places. You can also charge them at home at level 2, and you buy our cars for this affordable price and the battery's unlimited. And you know what? Your battery goes bad, fine. You can take it by one of our shops. We'll swap it out for you in 10 minutes. So we have battery swap technology. It's covered when you buy our car. You're going to be a customer for life with us. And it's all interconnected with this amazing tech. Stop even thinking about it. It's an appliance. And yeah, you've got your special versions, right? For the people that love to road trip and people that love to have the highest tech. And there's always going to be those models, or the GTs and the whatevers, right? For the Kyle Connors of the world and the people that want those, but just the average person. And to your point, guys, Tesla doesn't even want to compete in that space. They don't even want to be in the BYD Dolphin world. They don't, the reason BYD passed them in terms of like the most sales and stuff is because BYD builds a bunch of versions in this lower tier of EVs that Tesla won't even go beyond the Model 3. There's a whole set of cars that BYD makes that Tesla's not even in that space.
Mhm.
I think that's a huge mistake. They're gonna
Mhm.
turn around and not be able to compete. And they're slipping in China already. And they're going to lose China's market at some point. And China's going to come to America and they're going to be in robotaxis, they're going to be in autonomy and robots. And I think at some point we're going to turn around and Tesla's not going to be in the car business. We
Right.
won't, and I think Elon, to your point, is okay with that. He's okay being in the robot AI. You'll look back and you'll be like, remember when Tesla used to build cars? That seems crazy to
Mhm.
say, but
Yeah, it does.
I do think that's a reality in our lifetimes.
Awesome. And that kind of transitions to, our next topic. We talk a lot about being tech first to consumer first. So in this report, Stephanie Valdez Streety from Cox Automotive noted that the next phase of EV growth won't be driven purely by breakthrough technology, but by how well automakers translate tech into affordability, utility, and, practical consumer expectations. The report suggests that the next phase of EV growth isn't about tech breakthroughs, but about meeting everyday consumer expectations regarding affordability and availability. So you guys have to choose on this one. So we'll start with you, Chris. Which automakers do you think are doing the best jobs right now of shifting from building these tech-powered showcases to building practical everyday cars for the average driver?
I'm gonna be that biased guy, and I'm gonna say Ford. I'm gonna say Ford. I'm gonna wear the hat again.
Uh-huh.
Um, because I do think they are, and obviously maybe others are doing it behind the scenes because they just had this big, get together at GM where they gave everybody a tour of GM and they said there's a next generation of vehicle coming from GM. And from what I've seen from GM, they just basically, GM and Ford basically just copy each other, right? One says they've
Mhm.
got LMR rich, the other says they've got LMR rich. One says they've got an EV truck, the other says I've got an EV truck. One says I'm building batteries, the other says I'm building, batteries, right? They all they do is copy each other. So I'm sure that around the corner is a next generation of something from GM, just like Ford. But Ford is basically going out there saying, I've got this universal EV platform. I can have multiple hats on it. I'm starting with a truck, but then I'll have, an SUV, then I'll have a van, then I'll have, um, maybe a, whatever else, right? Whatever else is going to be on that platform. And it's made using this kind of mega casting, and it's doing this more efficient kind of wire harness, and it's going to have this battery pack that we build in house using the CATL technology, which will be the first LFP battery to ever be used in an EV. Tesla's done LFP, but only for batteries, energy storage, not for vehicles. Um, so all of that is going to be a first, and they're doing this to try to get the costs down. They're doing it to have domestic manufacturing. They're going to do it for efficiency. They're only going to get better at it. They're bringing their software to be vertically integrated. They're bringing their UI to be vertically integrated. They're kind of following that China Tesla model, and they're the only. I shouldn't say only because Rivian, right? Obviously, is kind of has done that a lot with R2 as well. But Rivian, despite all of that, still their entry level approach is still $45,000. So that's still not. Now they will eventually have R3. So let's get past R2. Let's see what R3 looks like. Let's see what R4 looks like. I would, so Rivian, I think would be probably, Ford A and Rivian B. But I don't, and there's, you would think, man, you would think Toyota, but Toyota, for whatever reason, just is not seemingly all in. They are so wed to hybrid. There's no reason Toyota can't do it. They have all the intelligence, they have all the battery knowledge.
Lord
I
knows I got the money.
they've got the
You got
money,
the money.
right? Honda, weirdly enough, right? The number one selling vehicle for the first time in forever wasn't the F-150, it was the Honda CRV in the past 6 months, I think it was. It wasn't the RAV4, it wasn't the F-150. Those have both had manufacturing problems. Ford with the aluminum fire. I don't remember what the supply chain problem was with RAV4, but both of them took a dip. CRV, number one selling vehicle so far this year. So Honda, again, you can't discount those guys, but they've shown no desire to do it.
I mean,
Um,
Honda have recently just said, washed their hands and said, "Yeah, we're not doing it right now.
right.
Sorry." And that
So China is just so darn far ahead, right? That they could literally walk in the door tomorrow if they were invited, and they could throw out a half dozen options for any of our neighbors to suddenly have exactly what you're talking about right now. So, and domestically, man, China's 5-10 years ahead of us. It would seem. If these guys, like I say, if not for tariffs and laws to protect them, um, th they could decimate domestic auto
Oh yeah.
manufacturing,
Oh yeah.
honestly.
Yep.
which is why they're scared and why they had these laws created and these laws exist is because they know that right now they cannot compete. Just period. They're not nimble enough, they're not agile enough, they just can't.
The
Um,
the average American isn't in our circles. We take for granted some of the things we see and what we know because of our love for EVs, but, every once in a while, I see these videos of these amazed people. I saw one the other day of somebody seeing a Lucid for the first time, and it blew my mind. Listening to this woman, she was like, "Oh, this is one of those Lucids. It's like a spaceship," and she was blown away because it was the first time she'd ever seen it, right? And she was just remarkable at this Lucid, and I'm like, "Oh wow!" Like there are tens of millions that
Mhm.
have no idea, what EVs can be, much less what they would be in China. If you were to roll out one of these Chinese vehicles with, the seats that they have and the, cooled and the refrigerators in the back and the, lay flats and the TVs that come down and how they're interconnected with the technology and the AI that's in them and the voice controls and the swivel seats and it's a totally different experience in a Chinese car, and they use them in a totally different way than we do. And folks would be blown away by them. And so, yeah, our manufacturing would just they just would just shut the doors, go find a different job.
Sebastian, you got a pick? Just throw out a name.
So, like Chris, I would like to say Ford, but I I have such a hard time, and we've talked about this on the show before, and I love the people that we've met at Ford, like whatever. I have such a hard time believing in them at this point. I just and I know a lot of it's not even their fault. Like the market has shifted, things have changed, but the F-150 Lightning was a $35,000 truck at one point. How long did that last?
39,000,
Or
39,
sorry, 39. That's what I meant. No,
39,
nonetheless,
9,
yeah. But still, how long did that last?
Like
2 months.
2 weeks, two
Yeah.
months. Yeah.
The Mach-E was supposed to be super affordable. How long did that it's just like, so then, it's like they're touting this, which like they're doing all the right stuff, it seems like on paper for the UEV platform to be affordable. Like it seems like they're knocking out like their milestones, whatever. But I just can't shake the memory of the past in my head of them like, okay, so it's going to come out and it's going to be, 35 grand. Sure. But the one you actually want is going to be 45 grand or, whatever else. And then the base model is going to disappear or the base model is going to get more expensive and just whatever. It's just like, it's so hard to shake because at the end of the day, that's how, and it's not even unique to Ford. I mean, the Silverado was going to be like 45 grand and is now what, minimum 60? Uh, Cybertruck was going to be 35 or 39 grand and
39,
is
yeah.
then launched at $100,000 and you thank them for it apparently.
And
Uh,
still hasn't come down, man. At least Ford,
no,
you could eventually find the Pro and XLT in the 50s. You know what I mean?
right,
You still can't get the Cybertruck for less than
right,
70.
Yeah.
right.
70
And so
seems to
it's
be the
like
bottom line right now.
the entire market is like this. So it's just so hard for me to say this company is going to be the one that's going to solve the affordability issue. GM came out, you thought was coming out swinging with the Bolt. It's going to be 27,000, and then they punched themselves in the jaw and said they're only going to do it for a year. And it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and
Uh,
yeah, I think that is there's still something about that, man. The number of I have a video I haven't put out yet, and it's a buddy of mine pulled up with his dad's Toyota Tacoma pre-runner SR5. This thing's 26 years old. It was built at the NUMMI plant, the same plant that the Teslas are built in now. It's and I had to video it next to my Lightning. It's a tiny truck, oddly enough, right? It's got a V6 little lift kit on it, right? OG original patina, man. And this is a truck built by a NUMMI worker, owned by a NUMMI worker, still his. I mean, it was just a beautiful truck, right? And it's sitting right next to my big old honking F-150. It was, base price of 19,000, as equipped 22. It had a sunroof like mine, sliding rear glass like mine, cruise control. It's got it's here's the crazy thing. It's got a 6-foot bed. Mine's got a 5.5. And it's and you could fix that thing forever, man, forever. Anybody could work on it. Anybody can go down to the local place and get your parts for it. You can just keep it and build it and just keep it running, and you treat it right and it'll treat you right. And I don't know what it's going to take to do that with EVs. Like, I don't know if I could say 26 years from now, my Lightning's going to do that. One of the things is
right,
when I realized and I looked around that the next generation of Ford truck wasn't going to be for me, and I didn't see anything else really in the market that would be, I went and got an extended warranty to match my battery life, and I've got an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on my truck. I went and paid for one because I needed to be protected. Um, I knew that I couldn't just go to the same guy that's worked on my wife's Ford Edge for 13 years, right? We had that thing pretty much problem free, and I've never owned an extended warranty on a vehicle in my life, ever. And my first Lightning, because it had some gremlins, Ford gave me an extended warranty on it before they bought it back. And so but I've never bought one ever. I've never bought one on a TV. I've never bought one on a computer. I've always said no to an extended warranty. The first time in my life, as much as I know EVs, or as knowledgeable as I am, as much as I know these things can drive, I've been on a podcast with a guy that's got 300,000 miles on his Mach-E. I know countless people with hundreds of thousands of miles on their vehicles. Still, there was no way I was going to own my Lightning and not have an extended warranty on it. I know too much. I know as many people as I know on one hand. I know as many people on the other. And that's the scary thing about an EV, right? That's the thing for the average consumer. And there's not a vehicle out there on a gas side that I would ever buy an extended warranty from, because I know a half dozen people that can fix it, that I can trust, that'll do scrap yards all over the place. They can go find a part for it and get that thing running again at a reasonable price. And outside of the guy from out of spec out in South Carolina and Martin out in Kansas, I don't know too many people that can fix an EV reliably. And I think that's still a concern. Who's going to be the national brand that gets themselves out there in a trusted way that can fix and swap batteries and stock these things and recycle these things and make a whole, it's another show, you know what I
It
mean?
is.
But that is a concern, I think, for owners as well. It's one thing to own it or lease it for a few years. How am I going to own it for 25? How am I going to show up a century later with, my dad's EV? When are your sons going to show up with your current car and show their bosses your EVs? What are the odds of that, guys?
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I don't know.
specifically with my car, with my Tesla Model Y, whenever it almost hit 100,000 miles, my wife was like, we need to get rid of it. It's time to get rid of it. It's 100,000 miles. It's like, if she has that stigmatism, that's batteries are going to start going out, things like, and it may never had, but at 100,000 miles, it was time to get, because that's when we had an extended warranty to 100,000. That was the time to get rid of it. So all good points. All right. Now we're going to move into something that, or talk about something that hasn't been declining, and that's used EV sales. So accompanying data in this report shows that while new EV sales have faced annual declines, the used market actually is surging significantly, driven by all these cars that are coming off leases and returning to dealerships. So while new EV sales have struggled year over year, the used EV market is expanding fast, and lease returns create inventory at much lower price points. You can ask Sebastian, he got his car off lease. Could a robust, highly affordable used EV market actually, or possibly could it cannibalize new EV sales in the near term, or is it like a net positive for overall adoption? We'll start with you, Sebastian.
I mean, I think it already is cannibalizing though, because we're seeing new EV sales drop, but used EV sales are growing. That means there is interest in these EVs, and they're choosing to buy the used ones over the new ones, most likely simply because we have an affordability problem in this country. And if the only way to get an affordable EV is to buy a lightly used one, then so be it, I guess. Because I would have loved to buy a brand new Ioniq 5 when I bought my car. I paid less than 25 grand for mine for a lightly used one, and a brand new one was 45. Of the same trim level. It's like, why would I spend an extra 20 grand? I'm okay to have 20,000 miles on my car when I buy it, whatever. I'm saving $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like most people, like we were talking about before, they're just interested in whatever gets them what they want and the budget that they're willing to spend. And if their budget that they're willing to spend is not 45 grand on a new car, because no one seems to want to make a car that's less than 45 grand, or market a car apparently that's less than 45 grand, like you were saying earlier about the Bolt and the Leaf and things like that, then people are going to end up finding the used vehicles that, will meet their needs, and just, it is what it is.
Yep.
But that's not a good thing necessarily, because in order for there to be used cars, you have to sell new cars for them to become a used car. And if we're not seeing these start moving on the new market again, there's going to be less off-lease returns moving forward and things like that. And so then will the used market stagnate and start to fall again? Or will we just now be trading second-hand to third-hand to fourth-hand to fifth-hand EVs for the rest of time? I don't know.
Yep. Your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I think there's something really attractive about a used EV if you can get it down there in that lower mile category because you're letting someone take the depreciation hit. And frankly, there's not a lot that's really inspired out there. So if you're getting a great deal on a used EV, man, that's the way to go. I'm even, this is going to be something we consider when we look at, R2 is definitely in the category a year from now. We have a leased Model Y. So a year from now, July of next year, we're going to turn that Model Y in. And, we'll look at Ionic 6. We'll look at or I'm sorry, EV6. EV6,
Mhm.
EV9 is in the category. R2 is in the category. Um, and so we'll see what else is out there. And but one of the things that we'll look at too is all these people buying R2 now, who then maybe want if lidar is out, maybe they trade in their current R2 and they take a big hit on it. Do I go and look at some of those used R2s? And is it such a great deal that you're crazy to pass it up? And
Right.
some of these people are taking out loans that are 7-year loans. And so unless you're going to own your car and kind of own it for 7 to 10 years, it doesn't make sense to buy new because you know, all of the early interest is interest. All
Mhm.
the early loan is interest. You're not taking down any of the principals. You're upside down. We hear this all the time, right? And these people that are they owe more than it's worth. You got all the depreciation. So that's why leases were so attractive when all the incentive programs were out there and people were taking 2 and 3 year lease deals. And that's why all these leases are coming available now, all these 23 model year cars. And so, yeah, there's some great deals out there. And I think the big obstacle now is that you've lost all these incentives. If you can get the incentives to come back and you've got a bunch of used cars, and California does include part of their thing that we talked about earlier, there is a used car component to it. And that takes an entire market down there at some of the lower income levels, and it drives some of that where people need it the most. And so yeah, I think that's used cars have always sold more than new anyway, but I think this is even a better value for those that can save. And I think it's just a matter of I just our Model Y again is an example. I have a buddy of mine that I'm doing a video with now who bought a used Model 3 and had no home charging. And so
Nope.
I brought them a level 1 charger because they had an outdoor in their carport where they park it. They have an outdoor outlet. So I literally brought them a level 1 and they're testing it out right now to see if just on their daily basis can they charge and not have to go to a supercharger to charge it. And so far they've been able to. And so I've got them doing it and then I'm going to go back and interview and see how it went. So stay tuned for that on Bow Family EV. Like and subscribe. Um,
There you go.
yeah,
Throw,
so
throw,
that's
throw,
coming.
throw some shout outs there, Chris. Throw some shout
Right,
outs
right,
there. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun, right? Is that marketplace where they could not afford a new EV? There's a lot of those folks out there where the used EV makes sense. They're going to save the money on gas. They're going to pay less for their car, and someone else does the depreciation on that Model 3, and they get to now enjoy a better car than they've ever had in their life. So yeah, that's a great market.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, when we were out filming at Evolve Auto, I mean, he had a 220, was it a 2024 Blazer with 4,000 miles on it for like
Mhm.
27,000?
That's
I'm like,
amazing
I'm like, holy
on a
cow. I
Blazer.
just, on a Blazer. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and it was, I mean, it was nice. It was a nice
Y-
car. There was nothing wrong. Actually, one of the salesmen bought it. It was just too good of a deal to pass up.
See,
All
like
right.
that's an attractive one actually. You're getting a Blazer
Yep.
at an Equinox price, but you're getting all the room of the
You're getting
Blazer
a
in it.
Blazer at a
That's
Yep.
bolt price.
And that
yeah,
they're
yeah.
actually their other car is an Equinox. Now they own an
Oh,
Equinox
I didn't
and a
realize Doug
Blazer.
bought it. I didn't know that.
Doug bought it. Yep. Doug
I
bought
do
that
remember
car.
Nice.
that
So
actually. I remember that. Now that you mentioned that, I do remember him saying that.
yeah,
Yeah.
he bought it. So he couldn't pass it up. He said it was too good of a deal. All right. Final question. We're looking into our crystal ball. All right. So let's fast forward to exactly 5 years from today, 2031. I'll be 5 years closer to retirement, maybe retired by then, and look back at this current EV winter phase that everyone's kind of panicking and adjusting their strategies for. What will we say was the single biggest turning point that finally broke EVs into true mainstream market? Was it pricing? Was it infrastructure? Or just something entirely? Well, Sebastian, we'll start with you on that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
I think honestly, it's what we've talked about so far. The cars have to get to the point they're just a better option, like and they're clearly a better option, right? Um, we've seen, like I mentioned before, like with the new Lexus ES, the fact that the EV is cheaper than the hybrid and does everything the hybrid can do. We're gonna have to start seeing more of that to where the EV option literally doesn't feel like a compromise to a lot of people. And then, like we've talked about over and over again on this, we've got to find a way to make pricing and whatnot just more compelling in general. Um, we've got to find a way to start to attack that lower market. Tesla, like Chris was saying earlier, seems to not want to do anything less than the Model 3, but there's a whole world underneath the Model 3. There's a whole world of the Corolla and the Civic and whatever else out there that is not currently really being touched by anybody in the EV space. And we're going to need to see stuff like that to start growing, and to start funneling people in. You've got like Chris was saying, the CRV is number one in the US right now, which Model Y kind of fits in that CRV gap, but it's way more expensive. And then these other automakers, Equinox is a great car, so, whatever, but it doesn't necessarily have that same pull. We're gonna have to just see all of this line up, where it's the better product and the pricing makes sense before we could, I feel like, actually see the shift. And once that happens, if it happens in the next 5 years, great. Once that happens, I feel like in 2031, if we go back and watch this again, we'll be like, "Oh, shoot, yeah, things are actually okay. Things are doing good." Um, but we've just gotta get there. And we feel like we're getting closer and closer every day, but then also it feels like we're taking 2 steps back at the same time sometimes, and it's just
Chris, your thoughts?
I'm gonna be the Ford fanboy again. Um, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt and say that, I think if you look back at that, what I call this amazing window of time, where from 22 to 24, there was all this amazing optimism. It was a golden age that turned out to be fugazi, but it was fun. It was fun for a while it lasted. And Ford was flying us to Detroit, and everything was possible, and three
Mhm.
shifts for the Lightning, and 200,000 reservations, and T3 was on the way, and the Tennessee plant was being built, and every right. And the thing was, Tesla was releasing Cybertruck at $40,000, and everybody was convinced the EV revolution was coming, and everybody was all in on EVs. And when you think about how narrow that window was and how everybody was into it, right? EV incentives were everywhere. Nevi was being funded, and there was just everybody was talking electric. And that was really only a brief window, right? Only in a couple of years, and everybody was throwing their hat into the ring. And suddenly, Honda was doing a deal with Sony, and all kinds of ridiculous things were happening, right? You had semi trucks with no motors being pushed down a hill. I mean, ridiculous, right? Ridiculous. So it doesn't take much, right? It doesn't take much. In just a 2-year window, all of that was happening. So if in the next iteration, let's say in 3 years, you have a universal EV platform that is real with 3 or 4 different models with CATL batteries that have now expanded, and it's been proven out. And then the next iteration of EREVs, as much as I'm not an EREV guy, Ford's, has delayed their F series trucks to align with an EREV so that there will be a diesel, a gas, and an EREV, which is really an electric platform with, hopefully a 30 kilowatt battery, not these little dinky 5 kilowatt useless. What are these, right? Those, I think, are just going to completely wipe out what Toyota has. Their whole plug-in hybrid stuff with the little 5 kilowatt battery. When Ford starts rolling out EREV Broncos and EREV, when you've got an option of full BEV on the universal EV platform, and you've got an EREV with an F series truck, a Super Duty EREV, a Bronco EREV, and you can get a true kind of electric experience, but still have the extended range, everybody's going to have to copy that. Everybody's going to get aggressive. And then some people are going to start realizing, it starts to now look a little bit like China, right? Where you've got a lot more electrification. People are more familiar with it. It becomes more comfortable. It starts to be like, yeah, I can have battery electric. And once you get electric in your house in one form, now you've got another one. I can see the momentum. So I can see by 2030, and then hopefully some of the politics and the nastiness changes and some of the funding comes back. And as people start to experience it, as people start to as millions and millions of people start to suddenly get on the bidet, suddenly they become more
We're,
common. And
we're back
right,
to the bidet.
right. I think that's the thing, right? Nobody experiences it. And so that's the problem, is there is this superior experience, because um, it's just not, the pricing, of course, is a big part of it. That's where it all starts. That's why the used cars moves. It's got to be the pricing. It's got to be that. But at the end of the day, once you've experienced it, it is a better experience, but
Right.
it's not worth paying extra for. It's not. It's got to be affordable, and we got to get rid of the politics of it. It can't be mandated. It's just got to be better, and it's just got to be more affordable, and it's got to be more reliable. And if it's not those things, it's not going to work. So hopefully, Ford leads the way on that, and comes through. And Rivian hopefully becomes this thing with 3 or 4 different models that are doing it. And then we'll have to find out what the heck Tesla's doing. Do they even care? Um, who the heck knows? And God bless somebody. If somebody lets China in the door, I mean, stop it, forget about it, right? We're there at that point, and then at that point, companies have to decide, because they did this with Japan back in the 80s, right? All the 80s compact cars, everybody was like, oh, they can't survive. They survived. They all figured it out. There can be government incentives to help them out too, to help them retool and to help them get gigacasting, to help them ramp up their battery factories right. But let the Chinese come in and manufacture, let them compete. Let the U.S. automakers compete, and let's go. Let's get these vehicles in here. So yeah, 5 years is a long time. It only took 2 years for that magic window. We can experience that again, but I do think it's towards the end. Ford's talking next year for universal EV. They're talking 28 for the 29 model year for the E-Revs. To Sebastian's point, can they actually do it? Let's see.
Remains to be seen. Hopefully. I'm hopeful.
I am too.
I can't get the doubt out of my head.
Yeah, understandable.
Yep. All right. And we are going to end on that. So, Sebastian, Chris, thank you all so much for hashing it out. Thank you for letting me moderate this. And that is a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And also, very important, don't forget to subscribe to Bo Family EV over on YouTube as well. What kind of content you working on? What you got coming out over there, Chris? What you working on?
I just put out a Putco modification with Martin Rebuilds, where we,
cool.
For those that don't know, my first bought back Lightning had a Putco light up emblem on the front, and it may have possibly contributed to some of the demons. Unknown, ? Not sure.
You're gonna find out.
Let's just say that after my problems, the emblem was no longer a supported product for the Lightning after that by Ford. They removed it.
Really?
Yes. So this time, however, we did not tap into the fuse box. We went through the headlight with a custom made harness by Martin. And so that is an improvement, and done by a real engineer. Last time I had the dealer install it, they went through the fuse box, which is how Putco says to do it. I think that's a mistake, and we show you why, and I show you some of the errors on my Lightning that happened my first go around. Really good stuff. So this is a better way. So that's what's on there now. I've got that Tacoma video coming up where I show that. I've got all kinds of fun stuff coming, some stuff with my wife's Tesla, all that kind of stuff, and all my past videos as well. So yeah, different cool stuff there.
Yes, we always suggest following Chris, and he's got some great content over there. So give him a follow, give him a comment, give him a like, whatever you need to do. All right, everyone. It's late for me and Sebastian here in Central Time. Chris is just getting his night started, but we're going to say so long, everyone, and we will see you again on our next episode. Bye, everyone.